More often than not, when I've paired PHP along with a database management system, the DBMS that I've used is one called MySQL. MySQL is a free and fundamentally open source database management system. It's very full-featured, it's used by a lot of real-world companies, so it's a wonderful tool to learn, and it's something that we can pretty easily make work right along with us in PHP. If I'm going to set up the MySQL DBMS here in Windows, I'm going to start the process off by going to the mysql.org website. When I get there to the mysql.org website, it redirects me to their development site, where there's then a link I can click on to go to the downloads for MySQL. There's actually two different pieces of software that I need, but if I download this thing called the MySQL Community Server, I'll end up getting both. So when I click the download link for it, it takes me over and asks what form I want that installer to be in. What I'm going to ask for is the MSI installer, which is the easiest type of installer to use on Windows. When I click download for that, it then asks which MSI installer I want. One of them, you'll notice, is much larger than the other. The small one downloads from the internet as it goes. The big one basically already has everything included. I'm going to go ahead and download the big one so that I can get all my downloading done with right up front. When the downloading is complete, if you go over and take a look in your downloads folder, you should have your downloaded installer file at that point. Here's mine right here. And if I double click on that file, it should start the process of getting the installer running. I'm going to go ahead and tell Windows to run the installer. If a security alert pops up, just agree to it. The installer itself then should actually begin. When the installer itself comes up, one of the first things it wants to know is basically what do we want to install? What kind of installation do we want to do? The first one that's selected by the default is the developer default install, which basically gives us a little bit of everything. We don't truly need everything that's a part of that installation, but it is the easiest to get going, so I'm going to go ahead and select it and pick Next. It then lists any problems that it foresees during the installation. It's essentially telling me that there are things that I have missing that's going to prevent it from being able to install these 4 parts. That's okay. These 4 parts are not all that important to me. The 2 things you do not want to see in this list are the MySQL server itself and a program called the MySQL Workbench. Those are the 2 programs we need, so if you see either of them listed here in this requirements list, find out what it is that you're missing that particular program requires, quit the install, and go out and install whatever it is that it needs so that you can get back to this step and have those 2 particular pieces of software not be showing up here in this problem list. Since these 4 things are things that I don't really care that much about, I'm going to go ahead and just say Next. Yes, it's okay. You can proceed even though there's problems with those. Here in this list, I see my server and I see the workbench, and those are the 2 programs that are most important to me. So as long as those 2 are there, we should be able to proceed. So I'm going to go ahead and click Execute, and it'll then start going through the process of installing each one of these things one at a time. The server installed fine. The workbench is all installed okay. It looks like the install for the thing called Connector ODBC failed, but again, I don't really care that much about it. If you wanted to use the same database installation to work with Java or C or something like that, then you might want to go back and figure out what went wrong with it. But the failure of that ODBC connection won't harm us any when it comes to working in PHP. There we are. That part of the installation is complete. I'm going to go ahead and click the Next button. It now wants to go through the process of actually setting up and configuring my server. I'm going to go ahead and tell it Next. The first step of configuring the server, it wants to know what kind of configuration I want, and indeed this is a development machine, so I'm going to leave that selected. As a matter of fact, all of the defaults that they have here on this first sheet are exactly what I want. There's no reason I should need to change any of them, so I'm going to leave all of those alone and just click Next. The second step of configuring here now wants me to set a password. This is a very important step. This is going to be basically the master password for the DBMS. It's a password that's not recoverable if you forget it or lose it. So whatever it is you choose to use as your password, whatever it is, do not forget it. I'm going to set mine to MC427. MC427 in both of the 2 places where it asks for the password. That's the classroom where I teach most often, so it's a number that I don't forget. It's a weak password, yes, but that's okay. We're just doing a little example here. I'm going to go ahead and click the Next button now. It wants to know how I want the database management system to be run. I can configure it as a Windows service, which basically means Windows will be able to automatically start up the server every time Windows starts up. That's exactly what I want, so I'm going to leave all that alone and click Next. And it says it's ready to go through and do the configuration now, so I'm going to click the Execute button. That part of the configuration seems to be done now. I'm going to click Finish. I'm going to click Next. It now wants to confirm that we can actually connect to our server. It already has the username root filled in and the password that I put in a moment ago. I'm going to click Check. It looks like we were able to successfully connect to the server. I'm going to click Next, Execute, and Finish. And at that point, my install should basically be done. Let me click Next here one more time. It's offering to go ahead and start up this program for me called the MySQL Workbench after setup. I think for right now I'm going to tell it no. I'm going to uncheck that box and just click Finish. We can start the workbench up on our own. What's actually happened now is, having installed the MySQL server, what we have is a database management server that is running right now. One of the things that sometimes catches people a little off guard about that is that you never actually see the server itself. The server runs in the background on your computer essentially all of the time, waiting to be connected to, and it then provides access to the databases it manages to whoever it is that actually connects to them. So even though I can't actually see anything right now, my database server is actually running. That's what that second piece of software called the Workbench was for. If you go to your Start menu, you should be able to go to All Programs, and under All Programs there should be a MySQL section there. And in that MySQL section you should see an icon now for the Workbench tool. When you start up that Workbench tool, what the Workbench itself actually is simply a program that lets us connect to the running server. When I start up the Workbench, it already has a local instance of MySQL 5.6 listed here, and if I click on that, it'll ask me for my password, so MC427, just like I put in during the installation. And if I click OK now, it connects me to my running server. So my Workbench then becomes sort of my interface, the tool that I use to communicate with and use my database management system. I can check on the server status here. I can go through and control user accounts. I can look at my actual database tables, which are all listed down here. And it's through this Workbench tool that we'll do things like create user accounts, set up our initial tables, and we can use it for configuration and diagnostics when we start using PHP to access the database itself. But at this point, we've done what we needed to do in this video, and that's simply get our database management installed and configured. We now have a set up and working MySQL configuration that we can now work on connecting to from our PHP server.